If you clicked on this video, that means you're interested in getting into a top school like Stanford or maybe an Ivy League. I'm here to show you what worked for me and how I was able to gain admission to Stanford University as a transfer student. Before we get into all the statistics and everything, let's talk about where Wesley was admitted. I was admitted into Stanford University, I was admitted into Boston University, New York University, as well as UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara, UC Davis, UC Merced, UC Riverside, and UC Santa Cruz. I was waitlisted by UC San Diego, and I got rejected from Columbia University, Cornell, Brown, Princeton, Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, Carnegie Mellon, and Vanderbilt. So before we talk about all my statistics and whatever, let's talk about Stanford statistics. So this year there were 90 transfer students and it's estimated around 1.6% acceptance rate. The Dean of Admissions said it was less than a 2% acceptance rate, and of that, 11 were veterans, 16 athletes, and the rest were all just people applying. Let's start with some pre-statistics. So I do have another name, Yu Chien-min, which is my Korean name. I'm a former foster youth and was adopted into America. So I was born in South Korea, raised here, first generation. All right, some other pre-statistics. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I went to a public high school with around 2,000 students. So at the time of applying, I had a 3.88 GPA with 154 units completed and 35 units in progress. Next is the associate degrees I earned. So in June 2024, which is after my first year of college, I earned an associate degree in general studies. In December 2024, I earned an associate's for history for transfer. And in June 2025, the second year end, I earned an Associates of Arts for Political Science, Economics, and an Associate of Science for Pre-Engineering, Physical Science, Actuarial Science, Business Administration 2.0, Physics, and Mathematics. Alright, this next part is all the grades and courses I took at community college. If I don't explicitly mention a grade, that means I got an A. As a high school senior and junior, I took dual enrollment courses where I earned 6 units of dual enrollment credit before I started El Camino College. So for summer 2023, which is right after I graduated high school, I took critical thinking and composition, stars and galaxies, and intro to engineering. Then in fall 2023, I did calculus 1, general chemistry 1, which I withdrew from, programming in C++, which I got a B in, and honors United States history 1877 to present. In winter 2024, I did calculus 3, modern history, honors intro to biological anthropology, intro to ethnic studies, intro to philosophy, intro to sociology, and theater appreciation. Then in spring 2024, I did differential equations and linear algebra. I retook general chemistry 1, which I got a B in. I did physics 1, which is mechanics. I did computer programming in MATLAB. I did aerospace engineering, Chicano history, which I withdrew from. I did public speaking and macroeconomics. So now it's going to get even more confusing because I actually dual enrolled during my fall semester and I quintuple enrolled. Yeah, I think that's the word. Quintuple enrolled during my spring semester of community college. But before we get to that, let's talk about summer. So for summer 2024, I did English literature, Chicano history, which I retook, elementary statistics, honors intro to international relations, political philosophy, intro to business, and intro to women's studies. El Camino College does physics a little bit differently than a lot of other places. So our physics courses are in a 4-course sequence. So my second year, I did physics 1C, which is like physics 2, which is electricity and magnetism. But we also have this other course, physics 1B, which is fluids, heat, and sound. And in fluids, heat, and sound, I got a B in that one. And then I did honors United States history 1491 to 1877, history of Asian Americans, United States pluralism, financial accounting, the solar system, honors learning, college and career, and building sustainability. And this was all during the fall 2024 semester. And in addition to that, I also enrolled at Glendale Community College, where I did engineering statics, which I got a B in, material science, and engineering graphics. So before we talk about winter, I want to mention that the winter grades were not listed on the UC application because the transfer academic update was due before winter grades were submitted. However, they were listed on my private applications. That being said, let's talk about winter. I took data science, microeconomics, early history, honors governments, US and California, business law, and argumentation and debate. Alright, so spring is when it starts to get a little bit more confusing because I enrolled at 5 community colleges. So let's start with El Camino. At El Camino College, I did calculus 2, physics, I guess 3, but we call it physics 1D, optics and modern physics, which I got a B in, managerial accounting, accounting ethics, and introduction to LGBTQ studies. And this is all at El Camino College. Now, at Glendale Community College, I did engineering dynamics. At Los Angeles Harbor College, I did general chemistry 2. At Chabot College, I did Intro to Solid Mechanics, and at Ohlone College, I did Electric Circuit Analysis. And none of these grades were listed on my common application or my UC application. However, for a lot of privates, I sent an update, midterm grades, basically where I was standing in that.
How bad can I be? I'm just building the economy.
Alright, so next we're going to talk about the SAT. For my year of applying, the SAT tended to be optional for most places, so I took it twice during my second year of college. That being said, I didn't do so well. My first time, I got a 1360, 600 reading and writing, 760 math. Second time, I got a 670 reading and writing and a 710 math, so my super score was a 1430. So let's talk about AP scores. In high school, I took 10 AP classes, but I only submitted 7 scores. I submitted AP World History, which I got a 3 in, AP Computer Science Principles, which I got a 3 in, AP United States History, which I got a 5 in, AP English Language and Composition, which I got a 4 in, AP Calculus BC, which I got a 3 in, and then I guess I technically submitted 8 because I got the AB sub-score and I got a 4 in that. AP English Literature and Composition, I got a 4, and AP Chemistry, I got a 3. Alright, time for extracurriculars and everything like that. So my number one extracurricular, which although the Common App doesn't let you list it in a specific order, it does it by dates. I was the student trustee for El Camino Community College District, which basically I represented all the students in El Camino at the highest level of the district, which is the Board of Trustees. I was also the student trustee caucus chair for the Student Senate for California Community Colleges, basically chairing the student trustee caucus, which is comprised of all the student trustees across California. Next, I was on the National Student Trustee Advisory Committee through the Association of Community College Trustees. I was a nanofabrication trainee at UCLA. In addition to that, I was also a part of the UCLA Accelerator program. Then also, I had my website, WesOnSTEM, and this is before it turned into what it is today. I was simply just writing fun articles about my journey through STEM. I was also in JROTC. I was a cadet major, so think like vice president, and I was the executive officer. In the Boy Scouts, I did Boy Scouts basically from when I was like 11 until I keep doing it today. I still help out occasionally. But I was the Council Lodge Vice Chief for the Order of the Arrow, which is the Scouting Honor Society. I was the second in command in the youth area because I was still under 21. And then I was also on the district committee in charge of social media. I also had an internship at UCLA for the Center for High Frequency Electronics, which I basically worked in a lab for a summer. I was also a supplemental instruction coach, kind of like a TA for one of the professors at El Camino College. I was an IEEE trainee. I was a Gradefly Senior Design Project member, which is in high school. We basically designed this automatic app that would grade homework assignments for teachers. I was the El Camino College Foundation board member, which basically raised money to give scholarships to El Camino College students. I was part of the El Camino College Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, basically overseeing the construction of new buildings on this very campus I'm sitting on. And I was part of the El Camino College Division Council of Mathematical Sciences. This was during my first year of college, and I basically represented student voices at a smaller scale on just the Mathematical Sciences Division Council. And if you guys want more in-depth information about all these extracurriculars, let me know, because I could talk about all this for days. Alright, now for my awards and honors. I got the Mechanical Engineering Design certificate from El Camino College, which I basically just had to do a bunch of projects and stuff like that. I was a South Bay Invention Convention winner, which was related to that Gradefly project I shared earlier. I was part of the Alpha Gamma Sigma Lifetime Membership Honor Society, which is basically a community college version of National Honor Society. I was also part of the California Scholarship Federation, which I was a lifetime member. This was in high school. I did the National Honor Society in high school, and I was on the board of directors, and I got an extra award for that. And then I got Eagle Scout from Boy Scouts. I got this when I was, 17? So I got this a long time ago. I'm also a Powderhorn recipient member from the Boy Scouts of America, and I also got the Supernova Award for Boy Scouts. So I only have one publication to my name, and this isn't a traditional publication. I'm not like some scientific journal or whatever. I thought I had to do that to get into a top school, but clearly you did. I wrote a resolution with two of my friends, a couple student trustees from across the state, and it was called Resolution Ensuring Student Trustee Rights and Equitable Pay, basically citing California Education Code to ensure student trustees get their right for an advisory vote on every single district board of trustees. Alright, next we're going to be talking about my Stanford transfer essays. I'm not going to go super in depth, so if you'd like to see a separate video on that, let me know. But from that main transfer essay, that Y transfer, I talked about how I took advantage of El Camino College and the California Community College system through their resources. However, I've just outgrown it and I need a new place to grow. So I talked about that in my main essay. I also name dropped some of the Stanford programs that I specifically take advantage of, like the Stanford Student Space Initiative and the major I applied to, which was Management Science and Engineering. For the advice to younger self, I talked about how when I was in AP classes, everyone talked about going to UCLA, UC Berkeley, all these like crazy universities. These are very good universities. Now I was going to community college. However, I would tell myself to focus on El Camino and success will follow. For the most significant challenge society faces, I talked about how some people might be born into disadvantaged communities and not be able to use their skills and their talents. For the historical moment I'd want to witness, I talked about the 54th Massachusetts and their attack on Fort Wagner, which is a really big historical moment during the Civil War. It's also in this movie called Glory. I don't know if you guys have seen that, it's pretty dope. But basically, the 54th Massachusetts was an all-black regiment during the Civil War, and they basically attacked Fort Wagner, and they lost, but it symbolized heroism, courage, and standing up for what's right against all odds. For the best compliment I've received, I talked about this compliment that I've gotten from my Scoutmaster. You've really impacted the Scouts so much in both learning skills and becoming a leader in Scouting, basically showing that what I was doing for Scouting was really having an impact. For the 5 important things I listed the people I trust as number 1, which is like my friends, my family, the people I care about. Next was my Lego collection, basically showing that since I was a kid, I loved Legos, and I still love Legos today, and I actually did write one of my supplemental essays for Stanford about Legos. Next, I wrote my Korean barbecue grill, which is the closest I feel in touch with my culture. As I said earlier, I was born in Korea, but I was raised here, so I don't really feel in touch with Korean culture, so this is one of the closest ways I'm able to feel in touch with my heritage. Next, I'll talk about Panera's Unlimited Sip Club, which is, I literally went there every single day during the spring semester just to lock in, and just to give myself that boost and that kind of atmosphere where I can lock in. Next, I listed the Scout Oath Law Motto Slogan, which are the guidelines of my life. Those are the fundamentals I stand by every day. So Stanford has 3 additional supplemental essays. One's about learning, and for the learning essays, I talk about Legos and how I could learn from Legos and learn how to use each piece to solve any problem I had, and I related that to life, how you can learn how to use anything to then solve problems later down. And then this is a special essay Stanford has. You either have the roommate essay or the community essay. I picked the community essay because I feel like the roommate essay is a little bit more subjective when it comes to the reader. So I talked about community, and I talked about my role as student trustee, representing all the students at El Camino College, bringing their stories to Washington, D.C. when I did my lobbying trip, and representing them when I was with my congressional representatives. Then for my distinctive contribution, I talked about my foster care journey and how I went from foster care to community college, and how I was able to represent foster care when I was student trustee by wearing a little pin on my jacket and everything like that, basically showing that anything was possible, that you can come from foster care and still succeed in some way. Alright, that pretty much wraps up my statistics video. If you guys want to see more content like this or other similar ideas, please leave them in the comments below. I'll see you next time.